Hello, it's Friday today. I don't know when you're watching this, but it is Resilient Finance Week. And today we are going to turn around two questions. One is, why me? And the other one is, why can't I? And neither of those questions are helpful. So we are going to turn that around so that next time your mindset will be completely different and no longer in that passive victimhood. While you hear this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. Okay, so the problem with why me is that there is no answer very often, or there can be, but any answer that you get to why did this happen to me isn't going to take you forward. Why did I lose my job? Why did this happen? Why did I have a car accident? Why am I sick? You can dig around a little bit for that sort of thing, but it doesn't take you forward. Any answer is not going to be helpful unless it's like that video where the nail is sticking out of the girl's head and he's trying to pull it out. And she's like, no, I just want you to listen. I only just thought of that. Otherwise, I could have had that preloaded. But you can Google it, girl with nail in her head. And it doesn't really help. And the other one is why can't I? Why can't I have a job like they've got? Why can't I earn some money? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And that doesn't help either, because the answer is something unhelpful. It's going to be negative. Oh, you can't do that because you're not smart enough. You can't do that because you're too fat. You can't do that. You're not pretty enough. It's all that's not enough. It's all restriction and negativity. Doesn't help you. And when it comes to finances, we've been to all gamuts of it. And there was a time when we were living in my parents' house. Justin and I were living in the garage. We had it done up with some bit of carpet on the floor and had a TV and so on. But we were in the garage. The kids were in the house. And there were our priority was their schooling and their church life, that being part of the youth group and getting good messages and positive things into them. And every year there would be a camp. There'd be a youth camp, and I had 3 teenagers to pay to go to youth camp. And because it was over 4 or 5 days, it was about $160 each. And we did not have a cracker spare. You know, we were just basically living. I wasn't working. Justin's work was sporadic. And we just had to make it work. And we thought, well, what can we do? And we changed around. We never really thought about why can't we? We taught our kids, okay, how can we? How can we get you to youth camp? What can you do? They're little girls. They're not really big and strong enough at the time to go and mow people's grass, because if they'd been bigger and older, they may have been able to do that. So what we came up with was we went to the local shops. We bought lollies, candy, sweets in that were sealed, that were individually wrapped. So we looked at these bags of lollies, and the ones that were individually wrapped, you know, like chocolate eclairs and the ones that have that. And we bought packets of them, and we got little Ziploc bags, and we had the girls divvy them up into these little bags, and we went with them as they went around our streets, door to door. Yep, door to door selling. And we taught them how to knock on the door and say, hello, we're from we're from the street around here, and we want to go on camp, and Mum and Dad said we have to earn our money to help pay for it. Would you like to buy some lollies? Well, there were people who were so impressed that they bought lollies that didn't even eat lollies. Some of them just gave them a donation. Now, yes, they were little and yes, they were cute, but they used it. And they had that sense of empowerment, and they were able, we just wanted them to help pay for it, but they were able to pay for themselves to go on camp. And that was at a time where the church was saying to people, oh, we need sponsors for these kids to go on camp. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but we were in a position where we could have used sponsorship to go on camp for our kids, but we found a way to do it. We thought, instead of saying, why can't I? It was, how can I? And so that's just what we did, because it was a priority. I'll tell you something else we did for that camp, and this is more for the believers among us, even though this is my business secular broadcast. Here's another tip. We actually earned enough so that we could sow into, I wanted to pay for another teenage girl to be able to go on camp. And I chose a girl because I had girls. Could have just as easily been a boy, but I was deliberate and on purpose in sowing into somebody else's daughter by faith and putting a demand on that seed and saying, God, I'm sowing into someone else's daughter in faith. I really want to sow somebody there at that camp. That camp is going to sow into my daughter's lives. And these camps change lives. They really put some. I still remember I became a Christian at 16, and I went on a camp, and I just had an encounter. Not because it's brainwashing and people talking at them, but it's about messages of hope and positivity and getting your life right and stuff like that. And so we empowered them just by turning around the question to how can I? Now, second question is, what's the other question? Anyway, is why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? And I want to bring back to remembrance, and I've never forgotten it, and he said it more than once, Pastor Mark Ramsey, saying, instead of asking why me, ask what now? What now? See that why me is passive, it's victim, and it's like, why did this happen to me? And there's no good answer for that. But when you can stop and just go, okay, that happened. What now? What now? It does something to your brain where you start thinking about possibilities. What can I do now? You know, there were times in our early days, we've always been on commission only most of the time. It's commission only work, particularly Justin, all his life is commission only. And back in the late 90s, when pay TV was new, we had Optus and Foxtel and Galaxy as well. He was selling pay TV door to door, and suddenly he was earning way more money commission-based than what his previous job had done. And people were in our church and in our world who were unemployed and looking for work, or they weren't happy in their job and they just needed to earn more money. And I said, talk to Justin. These pay TV guys are hiring. Oh, I couldn't sell. You know what? When you're desperate, you'll do anything. You'll have a go at anything. Like if you look up that previous interview I did with Steve Kachik, he wasn't qualified and he went for the job anyway. And he ended up getting something better, more suited. Don't think, why me? Think, what now? It'll open your mind to the possibilities. Instead of why me and why can't I, it's what now? How can I? What now? How can I? Not, how can I do that? It's, how can I do this? What can you do to change your financial circumstances? What can you sell? What can you put online? What can you stop spending money on that isn't helpful? Where are the possibilities for increase? I hope that's been an encouragement to you. All right, bless you heaps. Next week, we will be talking about, I think it's Resilience Week, resilience in general, and that's going to be very inspiring and very encouraging. So bless you heaps. Have a great weekend.